If not, I move on to the bigger topic next on landscape. This tab here. Now the landscape part affects 6 main areas here. First of all, on the terrain, the height, then the water, smaller scale, very large scale, ocean, and then paint. Paint would affect the terrain, the land terrain that you are doing, and then you can make small changes to areas in terms of its texture. This part, terrain, I will leave it to the last because this is the part that will drastically change, if not destroy your object settings, particularly objects that has this magnetic dot to the height itself. I'll explain why later on. Then on why you need to do this part of the work first before adding objects, and then on grass as well. It's another function to make the scene look more realistic. Okay. First things first, on the height. Now let's zoom out a little bit and we see. As you can see right now, this is an island along this mountainous region here. In 3D Studio Max, if you ever have to model terrain, it will be a nightmare because you often than not have to prepare lots of contours, contour maps, and then try to create a terrain, or if not, you will probably want to use FFD to try to deform your way into a hill and so on. Okay, often than not, we just cannot make it realistic enough or usable enough in this case. But in Lumion, you will not draw contours and all. You will use it like Photoshop. You will begin to paint it. Okay, how do we do this? How do we control this? Down here, it is along these tools here. So what happens is, this is to raise the terrain, this is to lower the terrain, this is to flatten it, this is to create small unevenness, jitters they call it, and this is to create a smooth terrain. Alright, this is to change the speed of the brush. I'll show you later what difference this makes. This changes the size of the brush. You notice down here, if I mouse over this island, you see that there is a yellow circle floating around. Now if I change the brush size bigger, you find that this size now looks a lot bigger, this circle. Okay, I'll show you a scenario. I'm going to increase the brush speed a little bit and try to reclaim the land for this area here. It's almost as if I'm doing reclamation works, so I can reclaim these areas like that. But if I find that the brush is too small, it's taking too long to keep painting everything up, we're going to change it to a bigger brush size. I can then affect a larger area one shot, like this. Alright. In fact, if I increase the speed, I can even go down to creating a causeway to link the islands, or to link the island to the mainland, like that. If I increase the brush size, I can do this. Okay, this is to raise. But sometimes I may overdo it, so I can lower this by dropping the terrain back down again, this portion here. Now if it is too hilly and I'm trying to create a road across, what I can do is I can then flatten this by clicking and dragging them. So this would flatten out the terrain so that I can simulate a road across this, like that. If I have some small areas I want to feature out, I can create a jitter, changing the brush sizes smaller, and I can create some unevenness to things. or I can use the smooth command, and I can smoothen things out by killing the ridges away, like that. Okay. Now I want you guys to try to also, while you're doing this, lower the terrain here a little bit, because I want to move on to show you water, how to create it. Okay. By clicking on this and clicking on place object here, this button here, I will be able to click and drag a water surface out. This is the control to create the area, the size, and the up and down arrow will change the height of the water this way. So if you notice now, I can then make it smaller or bigger, like that. And if I zoom in closer now, I will be able to see the water effects here. Okay. Now with this, I will be able to also change the type of water by clicking on this image here, from ocean water by default to tropical waters, which is clearer, and pond water, which is quite murky, greenish and so on, with algae, and mountain water, not as clear as tropical waters but still appear clean, and dirt, this biohazard pool of water situation, this one. And with this, we can also create frozen or still water. This is frozen, it doesn't quite move. Okay, so I'm going to just stick to tropical water. I need to also highlight to you this area. Let's go back to the swimming pool now. Okay, you will see from the top here the man and woman having a good time swimming in the pool. Okay, but as you drop down lower into the water and scuba dive, you find that the lady is actually floating, is actually appearing to be levitating, like that. Okay, is yours quite similar also? Now this is the key difference between using water and using a map. This water is created by a map, using a map itself. So this is the effect you can prepare yourself to be seen. Okay, this part, it can be seen like this. So it's a problem because it doesn't appear realistic that it is underwater. This is especially problematic if your final year project or your design project is underwater. For some reason you need to show the underwater features. Okay, so what happens is there is a workaround. You simply don't use a map for this. If you need to show the water, you will instead use water, and you will place a water surface here, like that, and raise it up until you see water here. You make the necessary stretch adjustments, like that. Make sure the levels appear quite similar. Okay, and then we go back down into the pool again. This time round we see if we can get the effect of water once we are in there. As you can see right now, you will see the effect of water, caustics, the effect of water and how light behaves, okay, or how water refracts light, causing caustics, like that. So this is something you want to record down and pay attention to if your animation eventually or your rendering involves a lot of underwater structures and fixtures at that. Next, but there are limits to what you can do to water. You can't quite change many of the characteristics. Alright, this is where the next item will come in. Which is ocean, this one. By default, ocean is off. So it's a switch off and switch on situation here. You need to turn on ocean. When you turn on ocean, nothing will happen. You can't quite see the effects of ocean until you are at this portion here on height, until you change the height of ocean. You find that suddenly tsunami comes in, flood everything. Okay, when you drag it too hard, too fast, you find that it's very hard to control the levels. Okay, this is where you need to hold on to the shift key, which allows you to then make minor adjustments, I would say corrections to it. Okay, so you can make minor corrections here. And just to show you an example, ocean is a lot more editable than water feature. Okay, all these are presets. You can first of all change the wave intensity. Notice now it's got a lot more bubbles or foams. You can increase the wind speed, making it really windy here. You can increase or decrease the turbidity, almost as if you are adjusting the transparency. And you can control the water direction or the wind direction, where you want the wave to be striking with this. Then on top of that, you can exaggerate, if not create your own color schemes. Notice here, there are two color choices here. We can make pretty drastic changes to the color. Don't think you will see this very much on our planet like this, but you can create this reddish situation. Okay, this is more like a sea of blood than anything else. Okay, no questions so far? Then we shall proceed. Now next, we are going to zoom into a portion of the terrain here, this green patch down here, and click on paint. Do you notice that in your scene you begin to see two different, almost as if you are seeing two different textures here? I can almost draw a line to this. Okay, this area here is quite different from this area here. Alright, if you are untrained at this point, you will not notice the difference, but eventually if you look a little bit harder, you will see this. When you click on paint, you will see 4 different textures down here. Alright, that means there are some subtle changes you can insert like that. For example, I can click on this area here, this farm grass, and I can control the brush speed a little bit and the brush size, and I can paint over this particular area. You see now slowly as my mouse is dragging over this area, you will begin to see that another new texture is inserted or painted on. This texture is changeable. You notice it can become really small or really huge. By default, these 4 textures are controlled by this one. If you look under here called Choose Landscape, it is largely influenced by this area or this image here. Now, you can change this collectively. Say, this desert-like canyon space. Okay, once you click on this, you will find that the 4 main texture here changes also. Let's change it to a snowy or cold environment. Or a snow and rock surface. Like that. Okay, you can revert this back to default, which is this. Okay. Now next, just to show you an example, you can actually change these textures as you are painting them across. Alright, depending on the speed you choose, they will appear or blend in a little bit slower at that. Alright, like this. Next, we will move on to grass. Can you zoom into the junction of these couple of materials here? Just a junction like that. So you get to see at least 3 different texture down here. 3 different texture zones. I need to show you this once we activate this. Okay. Again, this is like ocean, on or off. You can click on grass. You can switch it on. After you switch it on, you will see a variety of options here. Now, you can change the size of the grass. If I drag this, you will see this now. You can even change the height of the grass. And you can make it wild so that it's quite uneven, more natural looking. Now you got to pay attention this part. You will notice that some parts, why is it only affecting some parts and bigger? It is because of the texture you have painted here we use different textures to paint over, so that's why it is only affecting one type of grass or texture. Okay, I'm going to try to see if we can paint this on now and see if more things would happen. Okay, this one doesn't. What about this one that has a grass option here? So if I paint this over, notice the grass now appears here. You got to get real close, then you can see the difference here. Okay. You can also click on this to change the type of trees or grass, to make it more obvious and show you. You click on grass now and click on this black area here and click on edit type. You can actually add more things to it, like flowers, wildflowers for example, the spread, the size. Okay, notice now we begin to see a little bit more things happening, like flowers here. Okay, I got to lower the grass so that you can see it a lot more clearly. Okay, and we can keep adding a variety of types. I'll make them really, really big to show you. Alright, this is grass effect. Okay, before I run through review terrain, I want everyone to go to files and export this out to save. So just export full scene and save it please. Under today's lesson, which is semester 1 lesson 4 on Lumion, weather, landscape, animation and effects, this part. And then I'm going to change this to say session 401 and save it. Then we can go back to building again and we move on to terrain. Now if you pay attention right now, I have a lot of human figure at this point. Okay, they are all nicely positioned, the trees are all nicely positioned and so on. Okay, then I decide to, let's say, try out different terrains and all. Alright, no problem if you are trying to change it to, let's say, flat land. If you don't like how it looks at this point, you can always revert back by undoing it, no problem. You click on make mountains, however. Once you click on this, okay, notice the guy is gone already, and then you undo it. Okay, small effect, doesn't affect very much. But if you click on make large mountain, this one, what would happen is, if you notice, now you have a big hill. Everything that you have positioned, the cars, the human figures, the fountain, the fire, everything is following the new mountainous terrain at this point. Alright? You can still undo it. You can undo this. But guess what? After you've done this, you undo. Notice all your figures all your object alignment is all over the place. It doesn't restore back. That means if you plant 100 items, chances are you need to restore all of them. You need to reinstate that 100 items here. It's not something you want to do it frivolously. Alright, you make a mistake on this one, it could spell another hour or two worth of time wasted just to reinstate everything backwards again. So be very careful about this part on terrain. Ideally you should try to create the terrain first. You should know what your site context is. Is it hilly or not? Is it urban or is it rural? Okay. So when it is like that, you should create that part first before you add in your 3D model, before you start adding things in. This one, I have no solution to this other than getting you to, hey, you did a save, right? You did an export, isn't it? So therefore, this is the time to use it back again. I will import full scene now, and I will import the scene I have saved, which is session 401, this one. And I'll click OK. Because we messed it up, basically. Okay? So, this is a backup plan. This is how we should work properly, alright?